Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rob Black Show, the new and improved Rob Black Show. Yes, this is where we discuss everything, and that is everything. And I mean everything. Not just some things, but everything that is out there in the world that you know in this crazy sphere of whatever. I don't fucking know. I'm working on a new intro. I was working on some type of a new greeting. Every day I have a new greeting for our new studio and our new setup. So anyways, I'm Rob Black. I'm your host. In case you are just joining us for the first time, I welcome you. It's kind of like first-time caller, long-time listener, or first-time caller, first-time listener and viewer. Yes, I welcome you. So, how is everybody doing? We have a new setup. We have a new sound recording schism, if you would call it that. We got mics everywhere. I was told yesterday by a bunch of people that the show sounded awesome. The quality level of the audio feed is awesome. At least that's what I was told. Now, I don't know about awesome. That's a pretty big word. But I was told at least it was better than the show has been sounding. So that means we're off to a good start. Now, I know some lights were put up. When we go to the magic desk that's over on that side, you'll see some lighting and things like that. They still have to set up the lights in this area. But I think it's off to a pretty good start. I'm digging it. I'm feeling it. Damn it, I'm feeling it here at the Rob Black Show. I'm told it looks great and sounds great, like Tony the Tiger. So we're still working out the bugs and the kinks, and like the Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital that seems to still be working out, the kinks and bugs. So let's jump right into the news of the day while we are doing good with our audio and our sound and so forth and so on. So the newest information, and I say newest information, if we could have went on last night at about 2:30 in the morning, we would have, because at about 2:30, 2:45 a.m., which is about 5:45 on the East Coast, the news broke that a second healthcare worker from Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital has come down with Ebola. Yes, we've been talking about this last week. We continued on with the conversation Monday, and it is Wednesday. We equated this whole thing, we equated this whole thing to that of a Thanksgiving feast, a Thanksgiving dinner, and that being leftovers and leftovers and leftovers and leftovers and family members that you despise that won't leave, and it's just a never-ending flow of Thanksgiving annoyances. Well, Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital seems to be nothing more than a breeding ground for incompetency, a breeding ground for death, disease, and they blame everybody but themselves. And that's what we're looking at. And the story today is so much bigger than the initial misdiagnosis of Duncan, the man from Liberia, and Miss Fawn, the nurse that treated him and came down with Ebola. We've got information coming out today that literally is mind-blowing. It really is mind-blowing. Let me explain to you. A woman by the name of Amber Joy Vinson is now being treated with Ebola. As a matter of fact, she's actually sick, and they don't trust the damn hospital anymore, so she's being air-vac'd out to Emory Hospital in Atlanta. Now, I say she's sick. Let me say that again. She's sick. And why I'm repeating that, because she also has just returned from taking a flight from Ohio. So this sickness that was diagnosed yesterday, which she returned from a trip of seeing her family on Monday, this sounds very similar to the Duncan situation, where he showed up to the hospital and people said, well, he wasn't sick then. He wasn't showing signs of sickness, so he didn't infect people. And I told people, listen, there had to be some form of not feeling good. You don't just wake up and become extremely ill. And so we later found out that when Duncan went to the hospital on the 24th, he wasn't feeling well. Well, that's the time when he can be infectious. When he went back on the 29th, he was extremely infectious and extremely sick. So this nurse, Amber Joy, was treating Duncan with Fawn on the 29th and 30th. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are on the 14th. She was feeling ill yesterday. She was feeling sick on Monday. She was feeling sick about, 10, 11 days after. So she's had this virus since the 29th and 30th. And the question is, why was she allowed to travel? Now, we'll get back to that. I just wanted to brace you for some serious, shocking stuff. Let me continue. So, she was with Fawn and about 70 other healthcare workers. That's the disturbing element, not just the air travel, but the fact that 70 plus other healthcare workers were involved with Duncan at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital. Okay? When Duncan came in there on the 24th, 25th, and they sent him away with a 103 temperature and a pocket of antibiotics and said, just take these, you'll be cool. This same hospital that admitted Duncan back on the 29th when he was vomiting and diarrhea and bleeding out of his eyes and whatever else happens when you're in those late stages of Ebola. They basically didn't follow protocol. And you keep hearing protocol being kicked around. You keep hearing people not following protocol. And then you hear people saying, well, what was proper protocol? Who was supposed to be told of proper protocol? And the notion that this is some type of a new disease that just formed a month ago and popped up on the radar, and people went, oh my God, this is brand new, disturbing, shocking. All of those things is complete hogwash, because Ebola has been around for years and years and years and years. Not to make light of it, but I would use the term Ebola. Comedians would use the term Ebola when you were talking about being somewhere that was dirty. Rather, you're referencing the roach coaches, the portable food carts on the streets, or prison conditions. The term Ebola was a common joke used as far as getting some type of super dirty death virus, and you would use it in language like, I wouldn't eat from that food cart unless you want a little Ebola. These are things that were talked about years and years and years ago. So everybody knew years ago that Ebola was something that you did not want to get. So the disturbing aspects that are coming out of this hospital is that when Duncan was there and being treated, you had people there not wearing the proper protective gear, which is amazing to me. Literally amazing to me. You have directors of the nurses union saying that they had the changing of protocols. They didn't have the right gear. Some of the gear they wore didn't cover all of their exposed skin. So they were using surgical tape to cover up parts of their exposed skin. Again, it's perplexing to me because these are all doctors and nurses. These are all highly educated professionals in an enormous hospital. Again, Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital is not some type of urgent care facility. It's not some type of clinic that takes walk-in referrals or walk-in customers with a sprained elbow. This is a hospital. And if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you're playing golf and you start feeling chest pains and you collapse, they rush you to Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital. They crack your chest open. They move your heart around. They replace arteries. If you get shot, they rush you to that hospital if you're in that vicinity. I mean, the list goes on and on of the things that Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital treat. This isn't some fly-by-night clinic. And the fact that they now have 2 doctors, or I should say nurses, that have been infected with Ebola because they were not properly suited up. They were not properly trained. They were not properly versed in protocol. Again, I didn't know that protocols and being trained to deal with infectious and hazardous waste and disease was something that college-educated health professionals had to go over and 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 over again. I watched a doctor on CNN, Sanjay Gupta, everybody's favorite TV doctor, have medical clothing on. And he showed the process of taking off the clothing and the chore that goes into taking off the clothing, and how one could infect themselves if they didn't take the clothing off properly. So Sanjay gave this demonstration, and you actually had people in the studio go, "Wow, Sanjay, that's difficult. Wow, Sanjay, that seems to be a bit of a task. Wow, Sanjay, I could see how somebody could get infected." But I'm sitting there going, "Wow, Sanjay," to somebody that reads news, I'm sure that seems a bit difficult. "Wow, Sanjay," somebody that is a janitor at a high school would seem to think that's difficult. "Wow, Sanjay," anybody who's not in the goddamn medical field would be taken aback by the process it goes into protecting themselves by putting on clothing, taking off clothing, and working in a hospital. But if you're a goddamn hospital worker, if you're a nurse, if you're a doctor, I got to imagine to somebody that is good at their job, they're looking at that going, "Duh!" I can't imagine that we have to, as a nation, take the excuses of Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital and to blanketly put incompetency across every hospital in the United States and say, all of them are like this. Every nurse would have no clue what they're doing. Yep, over at UCLA, those nurses would go, "Duh, what do we do?" The doctors there would go, "Duh, what do we do? Hey, you got some infectious Ebola blood? Give it to me." I don't believe, okay? I don't believe this BS line that taking off medical clothing, putting on medical clothing, properly disposing of medical waste is something that every hospital in America is inept to do. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. And when we, as normal, everyday citizens who are not in the medical field, watch Sanjay Gupta or listen to people talk about Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital or other facilities, and we kind of sit back and go, "Ooh, that's interesting," or "Ooh, I didn't know that," or "Ooh, yeah, that seems hard." Of course it is. Because to be a doctor, you have to go to school for 10 years. To be a nurse, you have to go to school for 4 years. To be an anesthesiologist, just think. Michael Jackson died because he was being given drugs that trained anesthesiologists administer patients while they are in a hospital setting with proper machines around them. Joan Rivers died in a doctor's office that was not equipped for somebody going into cardiac arrest, and they didn't have the proper machines and equipment and personnel there. So, of course, everyday citizens hear of these things and go, oh yeah, wow. But to a trained physician, to a trained medical staff, I got to imagine there's people, Johns Hopkins University, I got to imagine there's people that are sitting there going, wow, those nurses and doctors in Texas Health Presbyterian are stupid. Wow, is it the water in Texas? What is it? I got to imagine that USC. I got to imagine Mayo Clinic. I got to imagine that there's hospitals and doctors that do not give Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital a pass. When you hear unnamed and anonymous nurses and staff from Texas Health Presbyterian say they didn't have the proper clothing, that the rags, the clothing, the sheets, things that Duncan was vomiting on and having diarrhea on and bleeding on, these clothing, the clothes, the things that he was in contact with, at times were just piled up in a corner. Like, hey, what's over there? That dude from Africa? Yeah, the dude with Ebola? That's all of his bloody, shitty rags over there. Oh, is anybody going to throw them out? I don't want to touch them. Well, who's going to throw them away? They're just going to sit there? And, that's literally what they were doing at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital. And a couple days ago, we talked about it on the show when the CDC director said, hey, listen, don't be surprised if other cases come out of Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital. Of course more cases are going to come out of there. The CDC director knew more cases were going to come out of there. He's sitting there listening to people talk from that hospital at how things went down. The average citizen finding out that Duncan went to the hospital on the 24th and 25th and said, I'm not feeling good. I'm from West Africa. I'm from Liberia. I just came from there. I got a temperature of 103. And they went, go home. People then knew, this could be a problem. This could be a problem. And then people are going, well, the CDC should have sent down trained specialists. See, the CDC even came out and said, we should have sent trained specialists. Well, what's the CDC director supposed to say? You people are listening to the director say this as if he's being truthful at referencing the CDC messed up. Honestly, he's basically saying that when we say to a child or we say to a student, my fault, I thought you could handle staying by yourself for an hour. My fault, I thought you could handle throwing out the trash 10 feet away. That's what the CDC director said. My fault, thinking Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital could handle something like that. Do you guys realize that Doctors Without Borders? Now, you got to understand, people are blaming the CDC, which is amazing to me. They're blaming Obama. They're blaming the government because they could be doing more. But yet, this is the same country that a month ago says the government sucks, the government can't do anything right, and the government is too much in our lives. yet now everybody's expecting the government to do more. Do more. And yet the CDC sends memos out to all these hospitals and says, hey, here's a list of things you got to be cautious of. Here's a list of things you got to do. Here's a list of things you got to watch out for. And you know what Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital did? They took that memo and wiped their ass with it. That's what they did. And now they're looking to the CDC saying, hey, you should have sent us. They should have sent you what? You're a fucking hospital. Do you realize that Doctors Without Borders, okay, let me put this in perspective for you. Doctors Without Borders has been in Liberia. They've been in Sierra Leone. They've been in the hot spot of Ebola. They have treated over 2,000 people with Ebola. And out of that, they've had 2 of their doctors come down with Ebola. Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital has treated 1 Ebola patient and have had 2 healthcare providers come down with Ebola. So, ladies and gentlemen, to sit there and point blame at the CDC or Obama because they didn't do what? How can you fathom that volunteer workers that are literally in the hot spot of death, literally, Doctors Without Borders are standing there in the middle of Liberia, and all around them is Ebola death. And they're treating thousands of people. And they had 2 cases of people contracting Ebola from their medical team. So with that, I got to imagine that the CDC and our administration and the president had to have thought, well, if these doctors could treat West Africans in West Africa surrounded by Ebola, I got to imagine that our highly trained and extremely competent medical staffs of our nation's hospitals, especially in major cities like Dallas, Texas, or Los Angeles, California, could treat somebody with Ebola. Well, guess what? As the CDC director said, my bad. We thought our medical community was more competent than what they are. We should have sent the cavalry into Texas. We should have sent the cavalry to the second biggest state of the Union. We should have sent the cavalry into the state that gave us one of our presidents for 8 years. We should have sent the cavalry out there that has Ted Cruz. We should have sent... Our bad. I guess Texas is as stupid as we all thought. That's what the CDC director said. And everybody goes, see, the CDC director said they made a mistake. He's being so smart-ass, dummies. In a million years, our federal government, CDC, and the people in the higher-ups never could imagine that a hospital in a huge city would mess up so much. Seriously. They would mess up so much and literally create what possibly could be a pandemic in Dallas, Texas. an amazing turn of events. Okay? An amazing turn of events. Medical waste sitting in corners. People going to treat Duncan and taping their bodies up with surgical tape like they're going to a boxing match. I mean, how does this happen? And how is this the fault of anybody other than the medical teams and the hospital at Texas Health Presbyterian? And let's face it, again, when you hear people talk about the nurses that contracted Ebola and how they're courageous and they're on the front lines, listen, okay? They're not a Secret Service that have to take a bullet for the president or pretend they're taking a bullet for the president. They are employees of the hospital. They are not stupid. And when somebody goes, hey, you got to go work on that highly infectious Ebola patient, and that person goes, I don't got no gloves. And they go, so? Go in there anyways. Yeah, fuck you. I ain't going in there. Again, no means no. I'm seeing campaigns on TV about domestic violence on women. And I'm seeing all these actors go, just because you talked to somebody and they were jealous. No. Just because they said they wouldn't do it again. No. I mean, they're talking about women being punched in the face because they didn't cook dinner properly. And they should go to the authority. I'm seeing these campaigns, but yet a nurse can't say to their supervisors, you want me to take surgical tape and tape that around my neck? Get the fuck out of here. Tape this up, asshole. No way. I ain't going in there. No fucking way. I've seen the news. I've read up on this. I'm educated. I see people going on airplanes in hazmat suits because of an Ebola scare. And you want me to go in there with duct tape on? Ain't happening. Fire me then. I'll go to my union. Fire me. Ain't happening. I'll go to the press. There's no way, God's green earth, I'm going to deal with the Ebola person and I'm not properly suited up. No way. Again, if we're talking about no campaigns for women and domestic abuse, can we have a no campaign for working with people that are infected with Ebola and your defense system is surgical tape? So there's got to be some blame put on the staff for not having the judgment to say no means no. And in this instance, I'm saying no. And when people say they were not educated properly, I find that a cop-out, considering that a 7th grader, okay, a goddamn 7th grader knows what Ebola is. When Ebola burst on the scene, and we saw images on television of West Africans dying by the thousand, everybody then looked up on the old Wikipedia, because there are no books anymore, and they read what Ebola is, how to get Ebola, what it means to have Ebola near you. Everybody knew what Ebola was. Everybody knew it was from West Africa. Everybody knew the areas that were infected. So again, the minute Duncan showed up at this hospital showing signs of something that could be Ebola, The entire staff should have been on Ebola lockdown. They should have said, Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. Not good, not good, not good. Red light, red light, red light. So we can sit there and talk about how the nurses and these people are courageous, but there has to be a level of stupidity when they are doing things that are not part of simple, logical protocol. We're not even talking about the protocol that the CDC sent out in memos. We're just talking about logical protocol. We went over this yesterday. When doctors scrub up to operate and put their hands in somebody's chest or their brain, there are protocols in an operating room. My mom is a goddamn nurse. She would tell me the protocols after a surgery and how nobody can leave the operating room until she gets done counting all of the instruments that were used during the procedure. To make sure, God forbid, they leave something inside the patient. Whether it's gauze, sponges, clamps. She sits there with a clipboard. Check, 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 check. Wait a minute. We're missing one gauze pad. Where's the gauze pad? My mom told me once she got into almost a physical fight with a doctor who was late for a golfing appointment. And my mom would not let anybody leave the room because they were missing a surgical sponge. And this doctor said, well, you guys figure it out. I didn't leave it. And my mom had to block the goddamn door. So doctors, when they're operating and involved in surgical situations, have protocols. They have checklists. They literally have things that they have to do. So they're not stupid when it comes to following procedures. At least some of them aren't. So the notion that these protocols were not followed or these protocols were always changing is kind of silly. Fact of the matter is, Ebola is transmitted through bodily fluids, and at the point of somebody's heightened infection, where they're bleeding through their eyes, bleeding out their ass, pissing blood, they are the most infectious. And should any of that fluid get on you in any way, shape, or form, you got an extremely high chance that you will be infected. With that being said, that's the only protocol you need to know. That's it. A 7th grader knows that protocol. A 5th grader knows that protocol. A 5th grader. Do you understand when we were in 5th grade and somebody said to you, hey, that girl or that guy has cooties. Don't go near them. And everybody wouldn't go near the person. A 5th grader goes, don't go near him. He's got cooties. And literally, everybody walks like this. And the kid goes, I don't have cooties, and tries to touch people. People fucking run. A 5th grader knows what cooties mean. So translate that into the big boy table, the big girl table, and Ebola equals cooties when we're in 5th grade. That person has Ebola. He's pissing out of his asshole. He's bleeding from his eyes. If you're going to go over there, don't let any of that get on your skin, or you're going to be pissing out your asshole and bleeding from your eyes. Really? Well, what should I do? Well, you better suit up. Well, all I got is surgical tape. Then I wouldn't go over there. Well, what should I do? I just told you. Don't go over there unless you're suited up. Okay. Good day. How hard is that? How hard is that? Literally, we're talking about things that fifth graders instinctively know in their head. If you told a fifth grader, see that black man there? Yeah. Don't go near him. See his eyes? Yeah. See what's running down them? Yeah, it's kind of red. That's blood. Don't go near that. Okay. The fifth grader won't go by Duncan. Plain and simple. So for a nurse to think walking over to Duncan with parts of their body exposed and going, oh shit, hold on, I'll be right back. I got to gear up. And getting out the surgical tape going, yeah, I'm good. I mean, that's like operating on somebody and instead of using rubber gloves, you use sandwich bags. Got no rubber gloves. Hey, give me that sandwich bag over there. Yeah, just dump the bread out. I'm good. Just give it to me. There you go. And that's Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital. And we're all now supposed to blame the CDC and President Obama. How does that happen? Doctors Without Borders. Over 2,000 Ebola patients, 2 people infected. Texas Health Presbyterian treats 1 Ebola patient, 2 nurses infected, and counting. So, how the hell does CDC or the president actually sit there and go, you know what? I think that Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital, well, they're stupid. And I think all the hospitals in the United States are stupid. So we better send out military specialists and be stationed at every hospital in the United States just in case somebody with the Ebola comes in. Because we know every hospital is fucking stupid. I don't buy that, and you shouldn't buy it either. Do not believe the bullshit. This hospital is incompetent. The workers were incompetent. And any notion that the CDC is to blame for that. I mean, literally, you have people going, well, this is not a hospital that specializes in Ebola. What's to specialize? It's a simple disease if followed exactly how you're supposed to handle infectious waste is followed. It's simple. That's the thing that people are missing. And just refer to Doctors Without Borders. Refer to all of the Americans that are helping Ebola patients. Think about the thousands of people they're helping and what the rate of being infected has been. It's been minimal too. If handled properly and just follow the simple logic of dealing with infectious waste, none of this would be happening in Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital. Having rags stacked up full of infectious blood and waste, and just having Joe the janitor walk over with his bare hands and throw it away, it's not the proper way to do things. And you shouldn't need government officials to explain to you how to dispose of infectious waste properly. Again, this is all common sense things. We talked about on this show just in life, cooking, things of that nature. Okay, I handled this raw meat. I handled this raw chicken. Let me wash my hands with soap and water before I handle this. I mean, these are all things that we just do in our normal life. How does a hospital not handle infectious waste with that same set of urgency they would if they were handling food and preparing it for their family? Again, this is perplexing. And then the most shocking part of the entire story comes that this girl left. She left Texas to go visit family in Ohio. She got on a fucking airplane 10 days after working with Ebola. Yes, let me say that again. We led the story off in the beginning of the show with this statement, and I said we'd get back to it. This woman, Amber Joy Vincent, okay, she worked with Duncan and worked alongside Fawn, who has Ebola, the 29th and 30th. That's what she did. She worked with Ebola. Now, people that were in contact with Duncan, think about this concept. People that knew Duncan, lived with Duncan, said hello to Duncan, are all under observation. Remember, when Duncan got the Ebola and was sitting in the hospital and it was confirmed, you then had officials running around going, who did you talk to? Oh, you talked to these children. Oh, you talked to these adults. You talked to this sheriff. You talked to all these people. You dealt with all these people. Well, guess what? We now have to monitor all these people. We now have to quarantine some of these people. Your girlfriend, the children with your girlfriend. We have to quarantine them. We have to put sheriffs outside of that apartment to make sure they don't leave. We have to monitor every single one of these people. Even though these people were with you before you were showing the infectious signs, before you were having diarrhea running down your leg, bleeding out your eyes, we still have to monitor these people. That is what was going on. And here we have a nurse, Amber Joy Vincent, who treated Duncan on the 29th and 30th at the height of his infectious stage, at the height when the guy is laying there going, Ebola out my ass, Ebola out my mouth, blink, 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 Ebola out my eyes. And she's there with Fawn treating this guy. Ebola is splashing all over her clothing. And yet, nobody puts her on a list to monitor her. Nobody puts her on a list to watch her. Nobody says, hey, Amber, you know what? We've been thinking. All these people that we're watching who just basically shook hands with this guy before he was bleeding out of his eyes are under observation. We've been thinking we might have you under observation considering you've been working with him during the height of his infection? That never happened. That never happened. Never, ever happened. People are under quarantine who happen to basically say hello to an infectious person. And here's a nurse. Here is a nurse that literally was working with Duncan at the height of his infection. And literally 10 days later, she gets on an airplane. A Frontier Airlines. This is just amazing to me. Flight 1143. She gets on an airplane and goes to Ohio and hangs out with her family. On the 10th, 10 days later, she's sitting there in her family's house hanging out with them. And they're going, so what was it like working with someone with Ebola? And she's going, that was great. Blah, 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 blah. Let me finish my meal. Let me cough on you. Let me eat from your glasses. Blah, 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 blah. Gee, honey, it was just 10 days ago. Yeah. Are you sure you were cautious? Oh, totally. I had duct tape on me. It was no problem, Mom and Dad. Family members. Nothing. How did she get on an airplane? Now, I guess this is the CDC's fault, right? I guess this is the president's fault. Again, on one instance, everybody wants the government to stay out of their lives. We don't want health care in this country. We don't want Obamacare because that's a dictatorship. He's Hitler trying to control our health care. We don't want anything to do with the government. But now the government is supposed to control the common sense of healthcare workers. Yes, the government should be stopping this. Well, what is it? You can't have it both ways. So now the government and the CDC are supposed to actually go, hey, everybody that's working at the hospital, you can't travel. I know that seems like common sense, but some of you, a couple of you have already, they're gone. Where'd they go? Oh, they're on vacation and they just work with the Ebola guy. Okay, gee, our fault. We should have been here sooner to tell you not to travel. See, the CDC admits it's their fault. They should have told everybody not to travel after they work with the Ebola guy and they haven't waited 21 days to see if they have an infection. Silly CDC. I mean, guys, at some point, people have to take responsibility for their own goddamn actions. It's so convenient to blame the government on a Monday and then condemn the government on a Wednesday. It's so convenient to say the president doesn't do enough, the president doesn't do enough, he caused this. And then when he fixes it, the people say, well, he didn't fix it. That's just the things that happen. Yesterday I paid $3.25 for gasoline. Does anybody say, look, the gas prices are lower under Obama. He got our gas prices down. No. You only hear when gas prices are at $5. It's Obama's fault, Obama's fault. So here we got a nurse, part of the Ebola patient, and she gets on an airplane 10 days later. And somehow, whose fault is that? CDC? Whose fault is that? The president? Whose fault is that? The Democrats? Like, what aspect of 21 days, what aspect of maybe being infected, what aspects of this protocol do the people at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital not understand? So Amber Joy Vincent gets on an airplane on the 10th, travels to see her family. On October 13th, she flies back. And yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, she starts feeling sick. She gets tested, and lo and behold, she has Ebola. And today, ladies and gentlemen, she's even more sick. And they're flying her to Atlanta, to Emory. They're flying her to Emory. They're flying her out of the hotbed of Ebola. You know how Liberia is the hot spot, the ground zero of Ebola? Well, guess what? Dallas, Texas, and the Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital is now the new Liberia in the United States. They literally are taking their people that get infected with Ebola and getting them out of the hospital. You know why? Because there's going to be more cases of healthcare workers in that hospital that are going to be coming down with Ebola. There's going to be more people coming down with Ebola. This ain't the president's fault. This ain't CDC's fault. This is Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital's fault. This is Amber Joy Vincent's fault. She literally got off the plane on the 13th, and on the 14th, she tested positive for Ebola. You know on the 13th she was infectious. You know on the 12th she was infectious. You know on the 11th she was infectious. She had the virus inside her. She's had the virus since the 28th, 29th, and 30th. So basically, anybody that has been in contact with Amber Joy Vincent from the 29th and 30th to today is at risk of having Ebola. They have already contacted all 132 passengers on the Frontier Airlines Flight 1143. They are in communication with every one of those passengers saying, guess what? You might have Ebola. Because the person that you traveled with last night has just tested positive for Ebola. So basically, in a 15-hour span, that girl has Ebola. Which means when she was on that airplane, she had Ebola. And today, she's sick. Today, she's not doing too good. Today, she's being air-vac'd to Emory Hospital. This girl has been infectious for a couple days. Why was she on a goddamn airplane? Why? That's what I would like to know. Why did Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital give her a pass to go and travel to Ohio? She literally was on the front lines of the Ebola Duncan case. She literally was involved at the height of Duncan's infection. Why 10 days later is she on an airplane? Why? Why? Can anybody answer that for me? Why? That is the most disturbing aspects of this story. Seriously, that is the most disturbing aspects of this story. How was she allowed to get on an airplane with 10 days in between her working with somebody that was at the height of an Ebola infection? And how could this woman, Amber Joy Vincent, how could she be so irresponsible? How? I mean, Jesus Christ. How? How do you not work with somebody that is swimming with Ebola and not be on complete lockdown? How do you not say to the hospital, listen, guys, I need to go and be quarantined. So I'm terrified that I got this Ebola. How does this girl get on an airplane and travel to see her family? How, man? How? People that shook hands with Duncan are on the quarantine list. His family, who was with him at his least infectious stage, are on a quarantine list with armed police outside. How is this nurse allowed to work with Duncan at the highest level of infection and travel on an airplane 10 days later? How? How does this happen? An amazing story. I know there's going to be more developments from this story. This is only the beginning, and just like the CDC chief said before Fawn got Ebola, when Duncan died and the CDC chief said, hey, don't be surprised if we hear of another case. And guess what? We had one. And when that happened, and the CDC chief went on TV and said, listen, this hospital was pretty lax in their protocols. This hospital basically let one of their own become infected. And don't be surprised if more people don't show up with, the disease. That's what he said. And you had nurses and unions and people say, oh, what he said was horrible. He's condemning the nurse. He's condemning the hospital. How dare he? Well, guess what happened today? We find out that another nurse contracted Ebola. The CDC official, he literally went to this place. He talked to these people. And the minute he started hearing what was going on, he knew right away. He goes, oh, there's going to be an epidemic in this hospital. There's going to be an epidemic in this hospital. He basically is trying to brace people for what we are about to see, which is a Ebola epidemic at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital. And it is now the hot spot, ground zero for the disease in the United States. Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital, the staff, people involved in the community, they are at fault for what is going on. It is their fault. It is not Obama's fault. It is not the CDC's fault. It's not aliens in the sky's fault. It is their fault. They are all highly educated people, and it is their fault that this disease is starting to spread. It is their fault that one of their own nurses who had Ebola got on a goddamn airplane and traveled to Ohio. It is their fault. ladies and gentlemen, Texas Health Presbyterian is at fault. They are wrong. And they should be held accountable. Not the CDC, not the president. Rob Black Show, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a break here. And when we come back, we're going to jump into another top story that was kicking around that wasn't Ebola. I know Ebola is basically overtaken ISIS and overtaken a whole bunch of other issues. And the fact that ISIS hasn't killed anybody in the United States or even hurt anybody in the United States, and yet that's the thing that Lindsey Graham said is going to kill all of us. But it's Ebola. Ebola, a disease that is killing people in the United States. Ebola is a disease that we ourselves created and put out into our general population, not ISIS. So when we come back, we're going to hit on a couple of these other things. It's the Rob Black Show, and we'll be right back.